order. I'm going to move to the approval of minutes as there is no public here to comment. Do I hear a motion to the approval of minutes?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on to the approval of vouchers. Do I hear a motion to approve vouchers?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And now for the approval of monthly reports, I turn it over to General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're happy to continue to report the financial condition of the utility continues to be very strong. We are ahead of the budget in all of our departments, and most pointedly in the electric department. Our net income for November, which is what's represented in your financial statements, is $156,000. But that contributes to a forecast ahead of the forecast by over $500,000 in electric. While we're right on budget in the water and sewer, we're slightly ahead in that department also. And all indications are that that will continue to prove to be successful in not only our forecasting, but in the actual sales and margin in all the departments. And I'll be glad to go into further detail if anyone has a question.
Any questions for the General Manager?
Yeah, I have one way back down in the tax investments and electric and water reports. I'm sorry, wrong one. Somewhere back in the report, there's a couple of statements about customers gained and lost, line loss, and water loss.
Yes, sir.
And just for future reference, is what we're seeing on this report about normal? Is there some brief? I'm just kind of thinking if I see it in the future and it's way different, is there a problem? I don't know how to judge that.
It's as far as the line loss or the number of customers?
Well, both questions. I guess water loss, line loss, and then I noticed in utilities and sewer we lost 8 and 11 customers this last period.
Yes, what this represents when we do number of customers is it's a picture in time that we pull this off at the end of the month. There are meter orders to be filled, in other words, to activate. We've got a lot of renters moving in and out, so it's a timing issue between when someone moves out, which therefore reduces the customer load, and then the 2 weeks where they clean, and then someone moves back in. So it's the trend of what we look at, which helps a little bit in that year ago. So that is the trend where we stood a year ago, and we've been relatively flat in water and sewer for quite some time. But what you see fluctuating by the month generally isn't an actual reduction in customers. It is a timing issue of when they're recognized.
Okay.
And as far as the line loss goes,
Line loss and water loss. Are those
line loss and water loss is what is designed by TDEC for the annual report that we do for them. So we go through the same metrics and formula to calculate the line loss that we do for the state annually. So those numbers will always and should always match up when we do the annual state report.
Okay, and then my question basically, if next month, we'll just take line loss. If next month I see one that's 4.9, is that a significant change that I ought to say what happened, or is that just normal fluctuation?
Well, you always say what happened would be great, but yes, that is a normal fluctuation. And the reality of it is, Steve, in the real world of this thing, that loss is really, what's leaking out of the pipes is greater than what you see there. You know, the way the report's done is it makes assumptions for fire protection, for when they bleed the lines, you know, and if there's a break, you take that into consideration, you know, and things like that, weeping in the galvanized pipe. So if you were saying, are we that tight of a system that hardly any water, and that is hardly any water, some systems are well over 50% of what goes through the pipe never makes it through the meter because they're leaking like a sieve out there. And then they value whether or not the cost of locating and repairing that is better than or more of a value to the ratepayer than just pumping water through it. So I would say we're probably realistically 15 to 20% of what goes through the pipe doesn't go through the meter, and part of that is a fire and things like that. We don't charge someone when their house is on fire and the fire department hooks up and puts it out with our water. There is no fee for that, you see, but there is accountability for that.
Right. Okay, again, that's just for my edification, so I have some feel for what I look at when I see that number.
Yes, sir.
Good question. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the monthly reports for November?
I make that motion.
I'll approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Project status report, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are happy to have with us our Director of Engineering and Operations with us. Dudley, the official word is he was detained in Knoxville and couldn't make it back in time for our meeting. And Todd is sitting in to be our technician on the recording, which is great. But since he's right here, with your permission, I'll give him an opportunity to explain the project status report that he himself designed and put out here for us.
Thank you, Greg. As you see before you, the project status report, we've got 4 work orders that we're currently tracking on the electric side here right now. The first one there, WO 1183, 4-aught AAC aerial cable up on Westwood Drive. That project is now fully complete. Happy to say all went very well. Replacing old 4 copper line up there with 4-aught aerial cable, modern day stuff that also provides us much better reliability up there to tie a line between 25W and over Spring Street. So, like I said, all that one went very well. Second one, there's WO 1210, 3-aught ACSR down Edmonds Drive down in Oliver Springs. That line project continues to go very well. Another one, replacing a number 4 copper line with modern day, larger cable, much more reliable. That project should be complete next week if all goes well. Have no anticipation anything other than that. It's everything's gone very well with it. The third one there is 4-aught AAC aerial cable up on Martin Road, up kind of the northeast corner of our system between Hines Valley and Raccoon Valley up there in the edge of Union County. That's kind of another 4 SSR single phase line, one of our most heavily loaded single phase lines up there, which that will provide us a tie line kind of up on that far northeast corner of our system between 2 pieces right at the end of our system across the valleys to tie those 2 lines together. That one was a brand new line for us. There's a single phase line that was way off the road. A lot of right-of-way cutting involved. We're now complete with the right-of-way cutting and started setting poles. All's going well there. Anticipate that should be completed in March very easily. And the final one on the list there is WO 1237 down on Riverside Drive down here in Clinton. That one was another one. We're replacing a 4 copper line with modern day new cable 3-aught ACSR, which is kind of for reliability purposes, additional capacity, flexibility in that area. That project we're just now about ready to kick off within the next 2 weeks on it. So maybe next week or the week after. So any questions on any of that?
Any questions for Mr. Loggins? Thank you. Then we move on to the approval of work order.
Mr. Chairman, I will make one comment on the project status for water. You know, there is, right down there at the overpass on North Main Street, we started construction on the 11th there with Hearst Excavating. They pretty much made a mess of it, and there's no way around doing that. There's a 12-inch line going in there, and it's going to correct a 90-degree pipe coming off of that manhole. So it's been needed for quite some time, and I apologize that it's been a road inconvenience for our citizens. Even under construction, I think that road is better than 40% of what I drive over in Knoxville, I got to tell you. So we'll get that and keep it as clean as we can and expeditiously get through there and get it back to an acceptable level just as soon as we can. Sir, we're hoping by the early part of February, middle of February.
Thank you. On to the approval of work order.
Yes, sir, we've got a work order to approve, number 1244 in electric. This is going to replace about a half a mile of single-phase aluminum, copper, steel reinforced conductor with 1/0 all aluminum conductor aerial cable, which we're, as you may notice, we're very fond of. And this will, as part of our power use and what we project, we identify lines that are most heavily loaded or that are experiencing an abnormal number of outages. This is a loaded line, and it will continue to give us the capability, the reliability, and the balance of system, which offsets our line loss for electric, which is at 85 million a year. 1% is a lot of money. So a lot of this pays for itself, pays back for itself over time. We did, when we went through the final numbers, although we were within a couple of $100 of what the budget was when we had our contingency, that's going to put us over about $9,800. So our budget number on this is $100,000. We're asking with the contingency approval for this work order at $109,879.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hear a second? Motion second. Is there any discussion? Does anybody have any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I do not have that work order.
I've got it here. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'll, if it's all, do you want me to bring it to you now?
No, sir.
We're up now.
We'll meet in the middle.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if you would, we discussed, I'd like for you to address the board about the events that occurred this past afternoon, this Friday, and any other business that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do that. I want you, I'll direct your attention first, if I may, to a Davidson Van Cleve attorney at law out of Seattle, Washington. I've left a copy of that next to your packet, and I apologize for not getting this out quicker to you. I just received this, although a copy of this is on your board book now, so you can reference it later. And I'm not asking for any action tonight, but I want to give you a heads up because I will be asking for your approval to participate in this coalition. This addresses, we've got 4 utilities within the 154 in the valley. These are players. Some of them are rather large, but it's not Memphis or NEC or Knoxville or Chattanooga. Volunteer Electric is one. Athens is another one. Joe Wheeler out of Mississippi is one. And we've got Gibson, which is in Middle Tennessee. They all 4 of these have not signed the long-term contract with TVA. Out of the 154, probably 140 some have signed. We were the first to sign, and if you remember that has now saved us more than $1 million over this past year. It was last September that we signed that, and we get a reduction in the wholesale cost. I don't know how these can justify keeping that from the ratepayers, and I've told them that point blank. I don't understand why you're doing this. They feel that if they can wield electricity over the TVA transmission lines, there are times in the spot market that they can pay less than what TVA charges in their wholesale power rate. So what they want is the flexibility to purchase power outside of the valley and then wield it across the transmission line. Well, that's unacceptable to every LPC, and it's certainly unacceptable to TVA. Congress set up what they call the fence, which means nobody can come in and we can't go out. And that's part of the public trust that we have in the public power. So TVA then can count on all of the power distributors purchasing 100% of their needs through them, and therefore they can afford to build the nuclear plants, coal plants, and it's a long-term game that they play, which is one of the reasons why a 20-year contract gave them more security, where they can invest in the long game and not hedge. This is why, for those that signed, they got a reduction in their power costs because these are actual savings to TVA. So these 4 utilities worked through FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and asked for a waiver outside of this fence. I don't believe that they constitutionally can do that because it is set by Congress, this fence, and FERC doesn't have the authority to trump that. But that's where it's sitting right now. And we've been very active in this, pushing TVPPA to take a stand, which they did, and working with TVA. Of course, these 4 are suing TVA, and what this firm is representing TVA. And what we want to do is come in in a coalition of local power companies as an intervener in a conversation, so we can have input in the decision as FERC is trying to make their decision. We can entertain comments and interject comments about the negative impact it would have on our ratepayers. Now, TVA, through this firm, has agreed to pay all legal costs associated with this suit, even though they'll be representing the LPCs that join this coalition. So there's no liability to any of the power companies that join in, but it gives us a voice and a potential seat at the table if it becomes necessary to protect our ratepayers. Because if we allow this, then I believe some other hitters will also try to do that. And I can quite frankly tell you, I would look at it also, because I don't agree with it, but if it's out there and we could advantage from it, then we would do that. But it would completely undermine the foundation of the public power model of what we're trying to do here, and TVA would become nothing more than a supplier of KWH, and all the other good things they wouldn't be able to do. So we've got till the 22nd of next month. I wanted to give this to you, and I wanted to give you a quick explanation. I'm not asking for any action tonight, but I will. You'll have an opportunity and look it over, and you can talk more about it, and we can meet about it. With zero, under any circumstances, there is zero liability to us, and we can withdraw anytime we want. But I've never been a sideline person, and I have been very defensive of this from the first moment that I heard about it. I pushed TMEPA, and I pushed TVPPA to make a stand on this, and I've been very supportive. Essentially, this supports TVA in their action to try to defend through FERC. And if it goes through and FERC agrees to it, which I don't think they will, then it would be appealed because the Congress is the only one that has the authority to agree to this, that what we see. So not to spring it on you and then ask for something tonight, but at our next board meeting, you know, after you had a chance to review it and get comfortable with it, and we can talk more about it then or between then, I'm going to be asking for approval for me to execute this agreement with this firm to become part of the coalition that's supporting TVA in this action with FERC. So I'll be glad, if you got a quick question, I'll be glad to answer that, but I know it's a lot. Kabam. All right. We good?
Ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
All right.
This is the Courier, yesterday's Courier. You may have read it. It's a lot to read. But on page 2, it says, there's a traffic accident that cut power in Oak Ridge. And it goes on to say the city of Oak Ridge was impacted by widespread power outages Friday after a truck hit an electric transmission tower at the intersection of South Illinois and Union Avenue, or Union Valley Road. It goes on to say power has been restored to all Oak Ridge electric customers by Monday morning. And part of that was the facility went down, so I mean it was a structural thing on that end of the county where they couldn't get it back on. But they were phased in as to when power got back on. And it goes on to say that people were transported to the hospital, the drivers and stuff. It didn't say anything about Clinton. And even though it's a Clinton paper, there's no widespread outages in Clinton, and there's a reason for that. And that's what I want to bring you tonight, why that is. So your screens, does it say the board meeting? Good. So at 13 minutes and 27 seconds after 4 last Friday, a truck went off the 4-lane and hit the side of that tower and collapsed it. Now, I've got meetings with TVA because I want assurances how they're going to remedy this in the future. You know, one time I understand, 2 times I would never understand. Zach, I can get you these pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, which is be better than that.
Yeah.
I can get you this whole thing if you want. Now, what happened when that went down, and these are 161,000 volts coming through these lines, and there are 2 main feeders on that tower, and both of them were knocked out. And one of them is a line from Bull Run to Norris, and that serves our River substation in South Clinton, and the other is from Bull Run to Kingston, and that serves Oliver Springs, Cofield, and as well as most of Oak Ridge. So Cub has never experienced a loss of 2 transmission feeds from TVA simultaneously. Never. What that did is it took 3 of our subs out. River Sub has 5,400 customers, Oliver Springs has 2,200, and Cofield's got 2,000. So all 3 of those subs went in the dark, and that was 9,727 customers in the dark. No power at all. What happens next and what we did after that separates us from any utility anywhere. And that's Flizzer. And I'm going to do a little bit, just a quick little background for some of our newer members. In the fall of 2017, according to the EPRI, which is the National Electric Power Research Institute, Cub was the only public power utility in the nation to have developed and successfully deployed a customized system-wide Flizzer solution, which is fault location, isolation, sectionalizing, and restoration. We did it in 2 phases, and Todd is part of that team that did that. In 2016 and 2017, we developed a solution for all 47 of our high voltage distribution circuits. And I did this little picture for us where you see the substation, and then coming out of the substation, you got lines, goes on the poles, that goes into your house. This 47 circuits is not unlike your panel that you have in your garage, you know, where your breakers are. And imagine if you put a hair dryer and an iron on one circuit, it's going to trip that breaker. Then what you have to do is you need to take one of those off, and then you need to go in the garage and reset that thing. So that gives you essentially what we look at when we look at these 47 circuits coming out of the 12 substations that we have. So phase two, though, took what happens outside of our system, and we don't have power into the substation. And that, you see Bull Run there, and it goes on to that steel structure, and that's what collapsed, which put us out no power to the substations. So everybody with me, because if you're ever not, let me know. So what happens when we get power interrupted to one of our substations? We've got 9,727 folks out. I'm only going to focus on River because that was the biggest one. And although I do have this for each one of the subs, and I'll be glad if anyone's interested, I'll be glad to show it to them. For River sub, it encompasses everything essentially from West Broad on, everything west of Broad Street. So that gets Marlow, that gets the Food City and the Get and Go. It gets Mariners Point and South Clinton, East Wolf Valley, West Wolf Valley, Forest Kearney, all of that area. It's a big area. All of that goes out, and that put you out, Steve, I believe you said, and the word you put for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
You know, you were pretty close on that. This is a representation of our River sub, and it's 6 breakers in there coming and 6 circuits coming off of those. And I've listed a little bit for you so you can see what load each one of those breakers have. They're now, everybody's out, 5,443. We have to give TVA 60 seconds. When they lose power to a sub, we give them 60 seconds so they can try some restoration efforts that they have. If a limb or a bird or something hit one of those lines or a failure, they'll try to bring it back into the service. We can't do anything for 60 seconds. They released that. Obviously, they couldn't do anything. They released that, and the Flizzr took over. And 1 minute and 40 seconds, our breaker out of Eagle Bend picked up the breaker on River sub, which brought back in 941 customers, which was parts of South Clinton, East Wolf Valley, and Fowles Kearney. 13 seconds later, Eagle Bend picked up another breaker and circuit, and that got the rest of South Clinton, Wolf Valley, and Ridgeview Drive. 2 seconds later, Clinton sub picked up the 3 other breakers, and in 1 minute and 55 seconds, we had all 5,443 customers back in service. Now, let me be clear, Oak Ridge is in the dark. Oak Ridge is in the dark. They can't do anything because they don't have the capability to do anything like that. So their hospital and everybody else down that line is all sitting out. And what are they waiting on? They're waiting on TVA to energize their substation. 1 minute, 55 seconds, and we don't get in the paper. Not only do we not get in the paper for not having a power outage, we're not in the paper saying, oh my God, that's amazing, you did great. You see, I mean, where we were out was more than what Oak Ridge was out, our people, in terms of numbers. So what everybody wants is low rates, great service, and high reliability. That's what we provide to our customers, and that reliability is a reason for that. So I wanted to take the time. I've got, again, if anyone's interested, I've got the steps that it took because we didn't wake up and just make a flizzer system that goes. I mean, it's over years of time what we did, how we negotiated with TVA in order to get the loop system, in order to get the backup, the equipment that we put out on the line. All of that was done over a period of time. I became manager in 1999, and we started this with our team in 2000. And the steps that we've taken, we've documented all of that in order to be where we are today. And where we are today, Oak Ridge is just now putting in meters that are intelligent. Knoxville's just now. They haven't finished yet. They're deploying meters that are intelligent. We did that in '06. Nashville just doing that. Memphis is just doing that. So to get from where they are to get to where we are, it's years and years before that happens. So where this affects what we call SAIDI and SAFE numbers, I'll just get you to that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I
sir.
interject one thing while he's looking for this too? One thing I would like to point out that Greg had a big role in too that he didn't cover here and the rest of the restoration process is that back about 12, 15 years ago, at his insistence to TVA, they installed 2 remotely operated switches out in Dutch Valley, which is on that line that goes between Bull Run and Norris. Well, once we had River restored, we looked at where are we, and in that line, we got to looking and up there and figure out, okay, they've got remote capability on that line, so we made a phone call to TVA's dispatcher saying, hey, can you operate that switch and refeed us out of Norris Hydro? So within about 15 or 20 minutes, they were able to remotely operate that switch that was there because Greg insisted
That's
that they
MOD.
do that.
That was MOD.
About 15 years ago. Then we were able to fully restore the remainder of our system while Oak Ridge is still waiting for them to go manually operate a switch down there, so about an hour later they could begin to operate theirs. So that's not to be missed in that. The remainder of our system was soon restored as well that he didn't point out in
There's a
this.
story in that. It's a motorized switch. It costs about $350,000, and I wanted TVA to put that in because River's on a radial, and this would help do exactly what it did.
Scenario.
And they wouldn't do it. I would, when there were meetings with TVA, I made a sign, and I'd stand in the back of the meeting and hold up a sign, MOD for CUB. And they got tired of seeing that. They invited Nancy and I to Chattanooga. We had dinner with the then CEO, and he agreed to put that MOD in $350,000. But I mean, it was a push. Thank you, Todd. But to give you an idea on reliability, these are what we call SAFE and SAIDI numbers. Most utilities don't even track this. The system average interruptions and the duration of the interruption. How many times are you interrupted and for how long? And we have dropped it 68% for the frequency and 71% for the duration. I mean, those numbers speak for themselves. You can't make that stuff up. And again, most don't even have the capability to track these numbers, let alone impact them like that. So I wanted to share that with you, and I hope that somehow makes a little bit of sense. There's a lot more to it, but that gives you the sense of it, and I hope we never make the paper for widespread outages. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Just a comment about that. I was going, after we got, notified of the outage, I was going through Oak Ridge to the Dairy Queen about 6:30, and I realized, oh my gosh, the Dairy Queen might be out of power. Well, fortunately, the Dairy Queen was not out of power, but everything this side of the Dairy Queen in East Oak Ridge was out.
Right.
And so as we got to the Dairy Queen, the Food City light came on, the hospital was still out, so they were on generator backup. Those people were struggling, and coming from the hospital side, we don't want to be in the middle of the OR on backup and the power go down. That's like worst case scenario for us. And so, let alone with all COVID and vents and all that stuff going on right now. And so it was real time when the lights started coming on when we were coming through over there, and it you know, that was 2 hours after we got notified.
Well, in this scenario, Cofield, we're able to get a breaker on Cofield even before we got River,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's, you know, you're right. If town had been down or 500 people been down, you'd been in the paper.
Right.
And the problem is you weren't, and therefore you don't get in the paper. But, you know,
But you need to know. I think you need to know.
that's a great job.
Absolutely. Any other comments or?
Yeah, my only question is why did it take you till 17 to get it up and running, but that's a whole nother topic. So.
You know, I'd like to explain it to you after the meeting.
With the pads on, wouldn't you? With the helmet on, let's go talk. Okay.
As a little side note, that 2 minutes seemed like 20. In our
Right.
household, we were watching TV, and for that 2 minutes, I had to talk to my wife.
Well, when you said a couple of minutes and we're at 155 seconds, you know, or a minute 55 seconds,
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive, Steve.
I see Debbie.
Does, that might be a Zach question. Does our city council understand,
No,
you know, we kind of,
I try.
okay. I just wish that.
Well, it's
they
hard to
would-
believe is the thing because first of all, they think everybody
Yeah,
has this. I mean, lights go on. I mean, what makes us different? And then if you say it, it's like bringing A's home from school. You can't really say I got another A in a science project that it makes much impact. And I think they get numb
yeah.
to what we do. I really think it's not like they don't care. It's now when the lights flicker, it's a deal because you're not used to seeing that, you know. I mean, we just got a letter, a thank you letter from that guy Norris. I mean, he took the time and wrote that thing out because he hasn't seen that type of service before, you know, and we really try very hard to provide that excellent service. That's what the team committed to when we all sat together and said, we were embarrassed because of our equipment, our facility, our reliability. I mean, we had an outage and it was chaos. We had 3 phone lines. We didn't even have a personal computer in all of engineering and operations. I mean, that was our start go. And then we committed to each other, and that's when I contacted TVA to get the $13 million is what I talked them into putting those steel poles in that goes around Jim McBride's house, and that's what got us a loop system to where we could backfeed this. We upgraded Clinton from a 69 to a 161, or we wouldn't have been able to do what we're doing today.
We wouldn't have had the capability to be able to pick River
Right.
back up.
That's right.
I think it's a combination of taking things for granted, and I speak for myself. Prior to being on the board, just taking for granted what CUB was providing, and it's not the easiest thing to explain in a 10-second elevator ride, right? Other than CUB has developed a FLISR technology that prevents outages, and I don't think they understand what all goes into that. Years and years of work. Of innovation, of working with TVA to even get, all the things that had to go into where we are today. And it's a story that's not easy to tell.
And we haven't told it very well either because, I mean, how often do you want to say we're the best anywhere? Do you say, I mean, although I've got the personality that could throw that out there, the fact is we haven't done near what we probably should have done to help distinguish us. We've always tried to keep the board up to speed, but we've never been in the public trying to, work that
When I
angle.
talk about FLISR or bring this up, Jim McBride always nods his head because he sat on the board, so he knows what I'm talking about. What I'd like you to do is, if you can send that in the packet next month,
Yes, sir.
I want to circle back and bring them and go through this presentation with them.
Well, you'll tell me what you want because I've got every sub just what I showed you, because I've got in-depth on what we did on every sub that's down there and the timing. But I think the way you put it, you'll get so far in the weeds, you'll lose your audience.
I think that general presentation which you provided with
Right.
us, they'll understand, and
Right.
I'll be able to put it in verbiage that an average individual could.
You can use the Dairy Queen store if you
I
want.
can use, yeah. I'll use it.
Leave
You know,
mine
it's
out.
such a phenomenal.
That breakers in the house, to give you a sense, one, you don't have any power coming to your house. There's nothing you can do with the breakers. The other is, if you lost a circuit in the house, you've got to do something. And that's essentially what we did. And then we were so successful in phase one, then we said, well, what happens now if we lose power to a sub? And never thinking that we would lose three,
Does sorry, go ahead.
No, I
Nope.
was just saying, it's such a phenomenal thing that we do, and the fact that we do it and other people don't even, other power distributors can't, but it would be such a talking point of positivity for our city.
It is.
To be able to say, we've got this going in our city, but when it comes down to seconds, and especially in comparison to Oak Ridge that was out for days, that's understandable for all of us to understand, but I think that's a great idea, Zach, if you can take this
Yeah.
PowerPoint and share with them and let them understand what we got.
Take
have
the
going
note
here.
cane with you, buddy.
Well, it's wonderful, thank you.
Does TVA or the group, the companies themselves, have access or share data around frequency of outages and duration of the outage?
No, they don't keep, they don't even keep them. You don't keep records of what you don't want to see.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to track where you need to improve on. That would be a bad situation. I get
That's
that.
exactly
I-
right.
we wouldn't do that at all, and so.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Because that's
so
the easiest.
impressive.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg,
Sir?
quick question. With our smart meters and our Flizzr system, does that give us the capability to realize when a single meter at a single house is shut down?
Yeah, yes, but we have to ping that meter. In other words, there has to be, and we ping them periodically during the day. But it doesn't signal us saying, hey, I'm out of power. Do you see? Unless we ping it. That's what we call the communicate with it.
Okay, but sometime during the day, you'd realize that when you pinged it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is we do it by section. So it's not like we're pinging 30,000 meters, and trying to get that information back. We'd overload it, essentially. So we do it several times a day. How many times a day do we do that, Tom?
It's just periodic.
Yeah.
There's no set schedule.
Yeah, it's not like we,
The biggest thing that really helps and is really beneficial is when there has been an outage and we've restored power, like widespread through a storm.
we
can
ping
the whole
everything in that area, right?
Make sure we haven't left anybody off.
And-
Because that's
and
the
what-
one we fear, that we restored it and somebody was too kind and didn't call us to let us know that. So, we don't know till 2 days later. or
We-
something. We used to know that.
We had, it was so bad before.
I think that's a positive thing, like Todd just said, in an outage, that you go through and ping each meter and find out that everybody really did get back on.
Because if a transformer's out and it's only got 2 people on it, say, we'll be able to determine that they don't have power.
Yeah.
But years ago, it was so bad, we were so bad in Briceville, that someone wrote us a postcard and let us know that they were out of power. It came, honest to God, came in by postcard. Of course, they weren't worried. They had their wood cook stove and stuff like that, but we were notified by postcard. That was
Wow.
impressive.
Any other questions?
I have one more comment. This was just amazing. When the lights flickered at our house, I thought, where's Flizzr?
Right.
And John said, what? And I just knew that was supposed to be popping in, but the fact that we are able to do this, CUB is able to do this is amazing, and we have come through some valleys of challenges in the last few years, but man, this is a mountaintop to be able, and I wouldn't want this to ever happen again, where we have so many substations out at a time and the tower over. But the fact that we were able, it's like a fire drill, we were able to see that it really works.
And another thing, first of all, none of this could be done without all of the boards that we've had. Well, almost all of them, you know. And when we come, and we just did a work order tonight for the cable, we're upgrading the cable. All of this gives us, because we have to backfeed that, you see? So we have to energize that from coming another way. So it has to be able to carry that load, do you see? So we continuously improve the system, which continually then gives us greater capability, because most of the time, FLISR's gonna happen on the 47 circuits that we have. So that means we've got a different kind of load going. But what we're doing to where it's economical is we're putting the facility out there, the hardware out there, to shorten the gap. Everywhere where we can shorten the gap, right now it's probably no more than 300 people.
On average, no more than 200.
No, yeah, on average, no more than 2, but I think our biggest exposure is about 300. So with the facility that we put out there, I'd like to bring that down to say 200, and then the average would be 98, do you see, out. All that costs money, and what we do is we set aside money. Every year we take bits out, we make what I call a contribution towards it every year, so we're not borrowing money to do that. Chattanooga, through the Department of Energy, got $112 million. Was it $112 million? And they're saying their system's gonna cost $300 million to do what we're doing. And we didn't borrow money to do this, you see. But over the years, we've made contributions to the system in order to, and put the facilities out there, because you have to have things that look at the lines to tell if the line's out. Then you have to have devices that'll open and close to where you backfeed, and all that's done automatically through the algorithms. But it has to tell that something, whatever it is to do. And we're constantly improving what we put out on the system in order to shorten that gap. And it doesn't bring in $1 of revenue, but it speaks to the quality of service that we provide, which we committed to do, is to provide excellent, high-quality service. And that's what we're committed to do, and that's what we've done, and that's the way we spend our money. So all of this conductor upgrade that we do, it gives us that flexibility to bring these folks back online. And as we put the facility out there, it'll shorten that group that's exposed. If a tree goes down, and it did on 25W, took 3 poles out, the closer you can get to that, isolate that outage, the more customers you can get back on instantaneously.
FLISR works. Thank you for FLISR. It was wonderful.
We're public power. We've offered that. We've tried to help folks with it. They can't do it because they don't have the infrastructure to put it in action. So, I mean, we can give them the program, but they don't even have a meter to tell them what the voltage is at the house. So how can you do voltage reduction, you say? Millions of dollars we've saved.
Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? Joe Manager, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Bring any further? All right, then I will adjourn this meeting.